The sky cracked with thunder. Obinna stood frozen. But pride, they say, is louder than fear. Later that night, Chike returned one last time and said to Obinna, "This is your final chance." This time, Obinna did not tremble. "I am staying," he said firmly. "I will not leave my life behind for another man's land." "You mean you will not leave for another man's land because of a girl?" Chike countered. Obinna did not reply. Chike stared at him for a long moment. Then he nodded once. "Very well," he said, and stepped outside. And that was the last night they ever shared as brothers. Early the next morning, amid tears from his mother and stoic silence from Obinna, Chike entered his car and left the village. Obinna stepped outside and looked at the direction the car had gone. He was pensive for a bit, as if he regretted his decision. But after a while, the thought of spending his life with Nina made his heart sore. Leaving his wailing mother behind, Obinna went with unsteady steps to Nina's house. She immediately noticed his steps were unsteady. "What happened?" she asked him. She had not come to the house that morning to bid him farewell. Obinna was silent for a minute. "My brother has chosen his path," he said, "and I have chosen mine." Nina's heart tightened. "What does that mean?" she asked. "It means I am not going anywhere," Obinna responded. There was silence. Then Nina asked, "You are not traveling?" "No," Obinna said. "Because of me?" Nina asked again. Obinna looked at her. "No, my love. It's because of me." Nina's hands trembled slightly. The weight of the decision suddenly weighed on her. But what if one day," she began softly, you wake up and blame me?" Obinna looked her squarely in the eyes and said, "I will never blame you." But never is a word even the future laughs at. The village buzzed for weeks. Some called the act romantic, some called it foolish, some even secretly rejoiced. But either way, life moved on. For 2 years, Obinna continued with his banga cutting and selling business, gradually making his own money, enough to marry Nina and start up his own family. And after tempers had cooled down on both sides of the family over the incident of 2 years ago, Obinna and Nina got married. The wedding was loud, joyful, certain, and for a while, Obinna felt proud. He had chosen love over ambition, and it felt noble. He loved Nina, and she in turn loved him too, and they were happy together. At first, life was sweet. A small house, shared meals, love. But love does not take care of the bills. The first child came, and then the second, and the third. Harvest became unpredictable. Prices rose. Meanwhile, letters from abroad arrived less often. But when they came, they always carried news of progress. Chike had opened another business. Chike had bought another car. Chike was doing this, or Chike was doing that. The letters were all addressed to Obinna and Chike's mother. However, there was no mention of Obinna in the letters. Even though he always sat in when the postman read the letters, he never heard his name in any of the letters. And the villagers began to whisper again. If only Obinna had gone, his life would have been different. Nina tried not to listen, but words are like seeds, and they grow in silence. The years passed. The house grew tighter. Arguments grew louder. Nina would mumble things. "You chose this life. You refuse to think of the future. Your brother was right." Each word struck deeper than the last. Obinna would hear some, but pretend not to hear anything. Life had not been easy for Nina either. The beautiful maidens boys had once fought over now toiled in the fields every day. She planted, hoed, carried water, cooked, and mended, all for the life she had chosen. Yet in her heart, she grumbled. If only he had gone, things would have been easier. Was it my choice to stay, or his to remain? Could he not have gone like a man? Then one night in anger, Nina exploded. "I never asked you to stay." And that sentence, spoken out loud, broke something inside Obinna, because he had once said to her under the mango tree, "I choose you." Now that choice felt heavy. Love had turned into accounting, sacrifice into accusation. Obinna had never regretted staying back as much as he did that day Nina spoke those words. He became depressed. But his pain had only just begun. There was more bad news coming his way. Just like an African proverb says, when the roof begins to leak, Even the wind remembers your house. One day, news came for Obinna and his mother. A letter was delivered. Chike had been in an accident abroad. He did not survive. For a long moment, Obinna did not react. While his mother was wailing loudly, he simply sat down. His older brother, the boy who had taught him to ride a bicycle, the boy who pulled him from the river, the man who had always sent money and took care of him without asking for anything in return, gone, just like that. And that night, Obinna finally cried. Not loudly at first, not before anyone. He locked himself in the bedroom and asked his wife to leave him alone. He wept for the brother he had lost twice, once to pride, now to death. And he whispered into the dark, "If I had gone, would you still be alive? Would we have been together?" But the dead do not answer. The only person who would have perhaps still tried to help him was gone. No second chances, no future invitation, no maybe next year. Just silence. That was the first time Obinna felt something crack inside him. He would never see Chike again. There was no possibility of reconciliation between them ever again. Ever since that terrible night Chike disowned him, they had never talked again. He had hoped that someday he would ask for forgiveness, but now there would forever only be silence. Obinna wept bitterly that night. The village was quiet that evening. Everybody had heard of Chike's passing. They mourned in their own way for the death of their son, and some cast accusatory glances at Nena when she passed. "It's her fault," they whispered. The years passed. Reality arrived slowly for Obinna. The boys he had once played football with began leaving the village, some to Lagos, some to Port Harcourt, some into business, some even got lucky and went overseas. None of his friends had stayed behind because of anyone. Once they had the opportunity, they took it and left. The village began to shrink. Money became tight. Responsibilities multiplied, and Obinna farmed. He struggled. He was doing the best he could to take care of his growing family, but it was barely enough. But perhaps most painful to Obinna was Nena's change. She started complaining loudly and comparing. "Look at your mates," she said. "You had the chance to do even better than them." These words hit differently now. The same tears that had once stopped him from leaving now became accusations. And one day, during an argument, she repeated that singular sentence, "You should have gone with your brother."
And you had the opportunity to go abroad, but you just wasted it.
Nena, what are you saying? You asked me to stay.
And when I later asked you to go, why didn't you listen to that one since you like listening to me?
That sentence to Obinna felt heavier than his brother's slap from years ago, because now he understood something terrifying. He did not just miss an opportunity. He sacrificed it for someone who now resented him for the sacrifice. The love that had felt urgent at 18 did not survive the weight of adulthood. He shouted back at her, and the fighting continued. It became a ritual in the compound. Morning arguments, afternoon cold silences, evening eruptions. The neighbors stopped pretending not to listen. Women leaned outside their windows. Men paused by their gates. Children pointed and whispered. Every day, they would say. Every single day. But Obinna and Nena knew, deep down, that the quarrels were never truly about who was right or wrong. It was about years of choices, of regrets, and silent what-ifs that had piled up between them like stones too heavy to lift. This bitterness, fight, and resentment continued for 2 more years, until one day, both mothers of Nena and Obinna decided enough was enough. Quarreling, fighting, and blaming each other was not going to make up for mistakes made or bring the dead back to life. The living had to keep living. So one afternoon, both mothers stepped forward. Obinna's mother sat down with folded arms, dignity wrapped around her like a shawl. It was evident she was a woman who had gone through loss and pain in her life, the loss of her husband and then the loss of her beloved son. Nena's mother also sat down quietly. Life had also left its mark on her weathered face and skin. Both mothers did not shout. They simply looked at the young couple, long enough for shame to begin its quiet work. Obinna's mother spoke first, her voice calm and unyielding. When a pot keeps knocking against another, one day it will crack. She looked from her son to his wife. This house is not a battleground. If you keep wounding each other with words, one day the wound will stay. Nina's mother sighed softly before she spoke. A child who washes her hands clean can eat with elders. Then she added more directly, you are no longer children. Pride is sweet in the mouth, but bitter in a marriage. Learn when to bend. Neither woman shouted. They didn't need to. But somehow, their quiet carried more weight than all the arguments that had filled the compound before. And gradually, the chorus reduced. The apologies came faster. The silences became softer. Laughter slowly returned to the compound. More children were born. Tiny feet began to run across the same floor that once held angry footsteps. Time passed yet again. Children grew. The house improved slowly. Arguments became fewer. Laughter returned in small portions. The couple learned to live gently with each other, and they learned to forgive. But forgiveness does not erase memory. Sometimes, when the night is quiet and everyone is asleep, Obinna sits alone. The compound is no longer noisy. The neighbors no longer gossip. The air is still, and he wonders, if he had made a different decision that day, if he had chosen the other road, would his life have unfolded differently? Would Chike still be alive? The questions floated above him like quiet ghosts. He never said it out loud. He turned and looked at Nena, at the life they had built, at the children in the next room, and he sighed. Because life does not allow rewrites. It only allows living forward. But some nights, just some nights, he still wondered. And that wondering never completely left him. The end. So that was one of the stories my father told me, and this story kind of taught me that sometimes it's not all about making choices. It's being ready to live with the consequences of those choices, whatever they may be. Okay, until next time on Stories My Father Told Me, thank you for listening and bye.